Hello learners, today we are going to learn about the program to find sum of diagonal elements of a matrix. So let us begin. So first we have the program code with us. I will walk you through the program code once and then we will discuss the code breakdown in detail. So let us begin. So we will begin with our header statement #include stdio.h. Then we have int main function. Now we have declared some integers and some matrices. So int I, j, rows, columns, a of size 10 by 10 and sum equals to 0. Now we have this printf statement that says please enter the number of rows and columns, and we will use scanf statement to take the input for variables I and j. Now we will take the input for the matrix elements. So we have printf statement please enter the matrix elements. Now there is a for loop for rows equals to 0, rows less than I, rows plus plus. And then we have an again nested for loop for columns equals to 0, columns less than j, and columns plus plus. And this scanf statement will take the input one by one for the A matrix, and the element will be and A rows columns. Now for rows equals to 0, for rows less than I and rows plus plus. Now we have this sum variable that will store that sum is equals to sum plus A rows. So now when we have calculated the sum of the diagonal elements, what we will do, we will print the sum of diagonal elements of a matrix is variable sum, and in the end we will return 0. Now since we have seen the program code, let us discuss the code breakdown. So we have declared a single two-dimensional array of size 10 by 10. The below statement will ask the user to enter the matrix size. So this printf statement says please enter the number of rows and columns, and this scanf statement says %d, and I and j. So it will take the input for variables I and j. Next, we used the for loop to iterate every cell present in say a 3 by 3 matrix, and conditions inside the for loops that rows less than I and columns less than j will ensure the program compiler does not exceed the matrix limit. Otherwise, the matrix will overflow. Moving on, the scanf statement inside the for loop will store the user entered values in every individual array element such as A00, A01 and so on. So here's the for loop. Now we have for rows equals to 0, rows less than I, rows plus plus. And for columns equals to 0, columns less than j, columns plus plus. And inside these for loops we have a scanf statement that will take the input for the element A, rows, columns. Now in the next line, we have one more for loop to find sum of the diagonal elements of a matrix. So this is the for loop for rows equals to 0, rows less than I, rows plus plus, and sum equals to sum plus A, rows. Next, the rows value will increment, and after the increment, the condition inside the for loop that rows less than 3 will fail. So it will exit from the loop. At last, we use the printf statement to print the total sum as output. Thank you, students.